Good night. Would you introduce yourself?
Hi, good night, Faye. Good night, the viewing people. Eswick Padmore, founder of the organization Friends for Life. Well, Faye, there's so much to say. I don't know how to start.
Wait, just keep it short and sweet.
I think I will stay right there for now. Yes, if you don't mind.
Sure, we'll hear all about you as we go along tonight.
Yes.
I have no doubt about that. Rudy, since you're to my far left.
Hello everyone, happy Pride. Tonight I'm actually here to represent Danny James as best as I can, because I started my LGBTQI activism with him 20 years ago when I was 15 years old. And that was for Free Forum magazine. And most of my activism between 15 and 22 was in Free Forum magazine as public relations officer. And that's where I met people like Eswick and Luke and many others. And I had a little bit of a break since then and picked it back up when Colin invited me to Kaiso House in 2018 to discuss Mr. Jones's case, no less. And the rest is recent history. So since then, I've been working with PrideTT on producing our annual Pride events. So that's my bit in a nutshell, and you all are free to ask me anything else later on in the conversation.
Oh, believe me, we have questions for you. Thank you, Rudy. And we move on to Sharon.
Mute. Hi, good night, everybody. So I think I will follow in the same stead of Eswick and Rudy and keep it short. I think it will be really cool to allow people to ask us questions. So I am Sharon Mottley. I've been involved in HIV activism. That's how I got into formal activism. And that would have been in 1990, a long time ago. I think it's 50 years already, yes. And I started my activism at the National Urban League, which is a civil rights organization in the US. And that's when HIV was eradicating African Americans. And so we had to do what we needed to do to try to save lives. And I moved back into the region in 2003, worked in private sector, but again, got the hankering to do real work and went back into HIV, and then segued into LGBTQI activism, really just because I felt the need that women's voices needed to be represented in the wider dialogue that was going on at the time, and that we couldn't talk about gay rights unless we had women present at the table. And hence we formed the Women's Caucus of Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah, so I'll stop there so that we could move on to hear everybody.
Fabulous. Thank you, Sharon. Jason, you're up next. Followed by Luke.
Hi, good evening or good morning, everybody, from a very gorgeous beach here in South London. My name is Jason Jones, and I've been working in LGBT activism for 33 years. My activism began in 1988 in London. I have been very keen on trying to build a bridge between the global north and the global south as a Tringlish person. My mother is English and my father is Trinidadian, and I was born and bred in Trinidad and Tobago, but I now live in London. And I think that one of the powerful things that we must look at as a movement is how do we mend these bridges, how do we build these bridges, And I'm really excited to be here tonight. Thank you.
Faye, you're muted, darling. We can't hear you.
Sorry, I said
Faye,
I'm so excited myself. And I'm geared up. I think I need a seatbelt for my chair. But anyway, we'll proceed. Luke, your turn.
All right, thank you so much. I started activism. I mean, this was back in the Trinidad Youth Council. I mean, a long time ago. I remember back then, I was trying to be the gay rep in the Trinidad Youth Council. That didn't work out too well, but very soon after that, I found Eswick and Friends to Life, and that made absolute sense for me. And I've been doing the HIV work and the gay LGBT activist work with Friends to Life since that time. When I found Eswick, I imagined that this was like a long-standing stalwart of an organization. And I did not realize that although S involved in activism from long before, that Friends to Life was just a couple years before my arrival. But I've stuck around with them since, and this has been, what, 20 plus years?
Uh-oh. Luke, we seem to be losing you a little bit. I hope it corrects itself throughout the night. All right, hope Luke gets back to us.
It might be that fan. That fan was blowing.
Yes, for the memorial. Okay. To Brandy while we wait for him to connect.
Okay, are you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you loud and clear, but we're missing half of you though.
You're missing up. Right. Better now?
That's because
Right.
Rudy and them overtake her room. You know?
Shahan,
Brandy,
Right.
they're telling you the business.
You understand? Right. I have to say, well, for me, over the last 20 years, I don't want to say how long, but it's 20 plus years, because I'm only 39. Yesterday, I've celebrated 39. I'm really, really happy. My thing being here I know what made me start this was the lack of support that was given for trans person and the lack of respect and understanding, because at that time, 2 decades ago, all trans persons was really classified as really as sex workers, and a lot of stigma and discrimination was around that time in terms of persons doing sex work. And that was my, I just see this, somebody has to have these people, and support them in so many different ways, because it wasn't just for the stigma and discrimination. There was mental health issues, there was family issues, there was, housing. There was a lot of challenges that the trans community faced at the time that made me actually say, someone has to speak on behalf of these persons, because we keep losing them to HIV, and sometimes 2 a week, 3 a month, because the population was really large. At one time, there were more than 50 plus trans persons out there who were sex workers in different zones, like in Port of Spain and Curab and St. James area. It had that kind of population for a very long time. So I knew what it was to see, I know what to see discriminated. Well, yes, I knew what it was like for us to see the computers to close. Hold a second.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah, I think what it was when I saw the discrimination that the community was facing, I had to really understand. I didn't know much about HIV when we started because it's not HIV got me there. My thing was the support that the community, what the lack of support that started first, and then I understood why it was and where these challenges were coming, what were the barriers. And I figure out, I say somebody has to stand up and fight for these persons at some point. And that's where the activism actually started as a trans woman, with the community. I mean, I have lost a lot of persons over the time, but I've gained a lot of friends and I've gained a lot of support. I've gained a lot of persons as stakeholders. I've gained a lot of respect in the community for trans women in terms of actually turning around stigma and discrimination in a really positive way. And this is where I am today, the trans activist, the woman that has I always say I'm very unapologetic. I'm really sorry, but I have to fight for this. This is what I fight for every day. Get up in the morning and start my challenge, and continue to do it and ask my community to encourage and empower them. So now I have 3 kids, no fathers. So we work in.
There's absolutely no need for apologies. You cannot apologize for being someone, as I would say, a shiro, and trying to bring change where it is needed. And as you've said what you said, it brings me really and truly to our first question, which is, and you've said you've become involved in advocacy because of the issues that you saw and no one was picking up that mantle. So for others, there has been some type of loss. You talk about loss and disappointment and disruption in their lives or lives of the persons that they care about. Sharon and Luke, what was it for you that made you pick up the mantle and run with it? Sharon?
Hi. I guess for me, and my drive, and I will call it a drive, started early. Like from childhood, I didn't like to see people being bullied, and that's when we didn't even use the word bully. I went to schools that, we made fun of people who were disadvantaged, and I always tended to jump in because I had a big mouth. I couldn't fight, but people didn't know I couldn't fight because I used to song like I could fight. And I used to cuss when cussing was not even appropriate. I went up to high school that people didn't curse, and I used to curse like a fisherwoman. And so I was always very loud and very protective of people, as I said. And then I got involved in HIV work, and then that's when unfairness and injustice jumped right out at me. That how could you stigmatize a group of people just because they were infected with HIV, and the Urban League really taught me how to be a professional activist. So I got involved and was hired by an organization that trained me to go into communities, and I'm talking about very impoverished Black communities in the United States where housing and food were primary concerns, so HIV was on the back burner. And then I got involved in LGBTQ work because I became a lesbian and I started to sleep with women. And so, of course, this again was in New York. And I got introduced to the Gay Men's Health Crisis, if you all remember that organization. And they used to do AIDS Walk New York, so it was my thing to try to raise as much money as possible. I remember one year I raised $11,000 and used to get my Star Walker thing. And so it was that sort of background. And then coming back home to Trinidad on vacation, and anytime I would engage with young people, I would talk about HIV. And then I had, of course, a number of friends, family, and loved ones that were gay. And then, so they were particularly vulnerable to HIV because it was hitting home for me personally. And so I think it was that. So for me, and I always talk, and I talked about intersectionality long before it became a thing, that I began to see that the intersection, the vulnerabilities, if the vulnerabilities between poverty to HIV, to LGBTQI, and even to intimate partner violence. Those 4 areas that I have worked in. And I saw how all of these things entwined to make us vulnerable. And so that's how it started and evolved for me.
Thank you, Sharon. Luke? Luke?
I hope leaving off my camera is going to make this connection better.
More stable. Yeah, it probably would.
But I really better.
Uh-huh.
Okay. When I was in standard 5, I must have been 10 or 9. They talked about HIV. They came and they, HIV was ravaged. I was going home by a friend to have lunch, and I saw the syringe. Decided I've never seen a syringe close up before, and I picked it up and I opened it. And my friend said, "Boy, throw that away. You want people to think that you just use drugs?" And so we did. We threw it. We actually threw it in somebody's yard. Children now. And then when I got by him, I realized that I had nicked my thumb, and I was deathly afraid that I would have contracted the disease. And so I went through must be me from about 10 years old to maybe about 17, 18, kind of waiting for the symptoms to hit. And so that was my introduction to the HIV sphere. And when I met Eswick and saw the work that he was doing in Friends for Life, immediately there was a very strong passion and connection because I knew what it was like. Because I had to wait till 18 to be able to go and get a test myself. And so I knew what it was like to have to wait and to be in that not knowing, and then to take the test and to wait 2 weeks to get the result. And it was so emotional and gut-wrenching at the time that it was almost natural to fall into that space to if not talk about persons living with HIV, but to talk about how the system could be better, to talk about how we can address this with persons better, and most importantly, to talk to people about what it means just to be living with HIV on all the very many complications, even if everything goes well in your life. When you wake up in the morning and you do not know, or when you wake up in the morning and you think that the only road that I'm walking down is one that leads to a horrible impending death, it really was gut-wrenching. I was my best friend Marlon at the time, when I came into, we used to call him the tie woman, because he always wore a tie. And he contracted HIV and died. And the thing that I remember after going to his funeral, it was to the day, it was exactly 1 month after that they came out and said that they were going to make medication free. And the deep sense of loss that I felt and the anger that it took so long, it made me a more impassioned advocate. So that was how I came into the field.
Did you say that experience you were, what, 12 you said? Did I
was
hear
10.
You 10. Wow.
I was 10.
That must have been quite traumatic for a child, partly not understanding the implications of what's going on, and then having them explain something to you that you might not have just gotten.
Well, the thing is that my mother taught math, chemistry, and biology in high school. So I fully well understood what was going to happen. And so it was a hard time for my whole family. But as I was saying, that it did take me till I was 18 to say, I'm going to go in and get a test for myself. Because my parents, they were just kind of, let's play, wait and see, I guess.
Okay. Shahan, would you like to pose the next question?
Sure. The other question we have for our panelists tonight is, what is the social climate for the around TLGBTQ plus issues in Trinidad and Tobago? when you first started your advocacy. So we posed this question to Brandy and Rudy. So Brandy, would you like to have a crack at it first?
And to add to it, how did it affect your advocacy? Unmute, Brandy.
You're muted.
I would say firstly,
The feedback.
okay, I would say firstly that what some of the things that, the first thing that affected me that made me had to do this was I did not know parents used to say all these things about gay children because I was gay from a long time since, and I never really come out to my mother until she nothing like she did don't know when I born what it was. So I didn't have to come out, so I didn't know. When I meet friends and I see dress up downtown on a Friday, the drag queens at that time, they're saying them as hoes and drag queens. And I saying in my mind, but that is what I want to be. That is what, I don't care what they say. That is what I want to be. That is what I want to be. And I didn't know. And then I saying, you know, I start to make friends with them, and my friends will be telling me who come from the MSM community used to say, Brandy, you know, you mustn't really talk to them. And I saying in my mind, I want to do that. That is what I want to do, though. And, you know, my best friend was Wayne Phillips. And Wayne used to be, he never said don't do it with like don't, but his actions would be like, when I say I want to go there and line with them in different spaces, oh, we not doing that. We going here. I said, well, you go there and I go in here. You go meet me here when you come back. And my friends was the dress up. And from when I hear the stories from them, because remember, I never had to come out. I was done, I just silently say, get up in the morning and I will fix my face. My mother seen me and she never asked me one day if I powder. She never asked me one day if I eyeliner. She never asked me one day, what is that? So I just say, well, then she don't see or she don't have time. One out of the two. And so when I hear in stories, them they were homeless and they living in the cemetery, because at that time a lot of them used to be living in the cemetery. And I asked them, so where are they from? We can meet or whatever. When I hear La Perouse Cemetery, well, I didn't even know, all I know was La Perouse. I didn't know it was a cemetery. And then I hear asking me, and I said, where La Perouse is when I'm living, because I was really young, really young. And he said, Brandy, there is a cemetery and they're living in the cemetery. I tell you about them people already, you know, you wouldn't study. I say, when somebody have to help these people, because people is not right to see. One of the girls at that time was 13 years old. When I asked her age, she said, I'm 13 years old. And she was already living in the cemetery. I said, no, something had happened with it. And then she picked up her boyfriend and the boy in the cemetery too. I said, but what? And you know, and these are the things that made me had to say the disconnection is too real. And there's so much that the men who have sex with men could benefit from. And it's the same challenge that the trans women would be facing. Why it is that nobody was studying them. And I started to focus. My thing was focusing with them how we could benefit and how we could help you. One of them at that time told me, but you have a job, you have a work, remember, you have a work, you don't know about this life. And I didn't know was sex work until I actually see what it was, where they were and the gathering and in different spaces, Hall of Justice, in the square, down on, you know, St. James area. And I actually had visited these places to see just what sex work was. And although I couldn't, one of the things is that I could have come, but I could not have, you know, do it because I had a job. They give a lot of restrictions. If you had a job, you couldn't, leave it for the persons who do have a job and do have a place to stay and their family. And that's how I understand what their challenges were and where they came from. And then I say, you know what? I go in and start to turn this around. This is not right. And I was the one as a young person, fully up to this day, the younger ones, and I meet them out and they say like, oh God, there's only you saved my life, Brandy, you saved my life. Because I had a kind of instinct, motherly instinct all the time. Well, we get a place on rent, and we'll buy things and put in the place. We'll get food to eat, and all you can still do all your business and do whatever, live all your life how all you are supposed to live. And like 20 something years ago, we started, doing these things. But the challenges was so much. I couldn't save all, but I save a good bit, a really, really good bit in terms of giving the support that was necessary and connecting with them in different spaces. And and then I understood what mental issues was. And then I understand what transitioning could be like and all the different challenges you had from moving from being a gay man, and then you might do sex work, without dressing up and contract HIV, and then you move on to be a trans person, because this is how transitioning is. You don't just get up and say one day it's trans. It takes a time to process, because it's what's internally have to then become externally. So these are some of the things that I remembered working and being why I had to do this today. This is the reason for this.
Wow, that's what a shiro is.
Wow.
That is who a shiro is. Yes, Rudy.
I'm listening. Sorry, Faye. You might have to
Oh, go right ahead. Go ahead.
mute that. Yes, I'm listening to my colleagues, and the only thing that can come into my mind is the more things change, the more they stay the same. Because picture it, 2000, it was the first Y2K blitz. I don't know if some people remember when everyone thought the world was going to end on midnight at December 30th, well, January 1st, 2000. That's the year that I actually started working with Danny on Free Forum magazine. And just to give some more context, Free Forum magazine was dedicated to the MSM community, men who have sex with men. But I do know that Danny tried to be as intersectional as he could be in the publication. But it was the back end of the HIV crisis, where the 80s had taken many of our people from us and left the entire community fragmented. I mean, think about it for a moment. Your best and brightest people, right, who were at the top of their spheres, whether it was in the arts or in business or teaching, what have you, people were being taken away in matter of months sometimes. So you had an entire community that was fragmented and traumatized. And as Luke referenced, the general public basically would literally, like Moses part in the Red Ocean, if they thought you were gay, they automatically thought you were HIV positive, and they would just part and move aside from you. So this is, even though people were looking to the future, they maintained all of these archaic beliefs around what it meant to be homosexual. So I enter this space. Danny James meets me at a party at the paddock at Queen's Park, Savannah. And for those who remember Danny, he looked from a distance like a little boy, like 18, 20 years old, right? And so I'm there with my friends thinking, oh, this guy, he sent his friend Andrew across to talk to me. And he said, my friend wants to talk to you. So I thought, well, this guy must be like what he's seeing. And I'm gonna, because I never had a date or anything like that. Only to go across and chat with Danny. And he says, you know, I have a job I want to offer you. So I thought, I'm 15 years old. What kind of job does man want to offer me? So I had a conversation with him. And Danny sat me down at his home in First Avenue, Cascade. He was at that time living with his family for a brief moment. And he, for 3.5 hours, I remember the meeting very well, he explained to me about a whole other version of gay life that I was not aware of, that did not exist in my space. He took me through the HIV AIDS epidemic. He took me through the healthcare system. He took me through the different NGOs that were in operation, like Friends for Life. And what I understood in that moment was that you had this fragmented community battling a general public that had no notion about human rights and protections in the workplace, and people still thinking you can get HIV from a sneeze or from a handshake. And we needed to bring our community together. And that was, so I asked him, I said, well, I don't know what you're talking about. That's not my experience. You know, what do you think I could bring to this? And I've never shared this story with people before, but he, in that moment, he sat down and he looked at me and he said, people like you and me don't get the brunt of this type of treatment. We don't experience life the way that Brandy just explained to you all people who were experiencing life. And he said, that's why I'm asking you to do this work, because we need people to represent and to show the spectrum of what it means to be LGBTQ in Trinidad and Tobago. And you need people to stand with vulnerable groups and help to break down those societal misperceptions. And that was the climate. It was a climate where if you think people are divided now, they were ever more distant, because we didn't have social media, we didn't have Grindr, the media that we consumed was really domestic media. I mean, there was one TV station at one point in time before there was even cable. So you have to understand, it was whatever your family was telling you, it was whatever the local media was telling you. So we were even more divided back then, at ethnic levels, class levels, even within the community. I had friends who would say to me, those are people you don't want to associate with. And they were talking about, of course, people from a lower socioeconomic background and who they thought were HIV positive. Little did some of them know that they were HIV positive and didn't know it. So that was the climate where advocacy really was left for people who were directly impacted by whatever the issue was. It was not something that the insulated classes got involved in. That was their problem. Let them fight up with homelessness and let them fight up with getting tested and you know, these other types of issues. And how it affected my work, it made it difficult. In a nutshell, because one of the things I had to do with Danny was actually go to parties, to gay parties, which, by the way, we had ever so often. There was no studio, there was no boy code. It was, you know, in some little avenue somewhere, or in some, you know, hole, as we call it, say that they would put us, you know, we could get to have this party. I would have to go to these parties and actually do surveys. Again, all manual. We did not have Wi-Fi and internet and tablets. It was on a clipboard. Each sheet was one person, and you had to stand there while these people trying to have a good time and get information from them. And then he asked me to document. I brought with me, actually, this is an issue of Free Forum magazine from 2004. And yes, I'm in here, but it's not about me. The point is, this is what we communicated with, paper. Yeah. So imagine having to navigate all of these divisions and exacerbated tensions within a community and try to get data and communicate about HIV, AIDS, and testing. It was not easy. And people automatically assumed that because I was working with Free Forum and Denny and associating with Friends for Life, they automatically assumed that I was HIV positive. Yeah. So that had a whole other layer to it now, because people you thought were your friends didn't want to associate with you anymore. And, you know, it was really all of that. It's a very complex thing to unpack, but I give you a précis. I give you a piece of the story.
We totally enjoyed that. So we have heard from most of you all so far that there have been lots of challenges. And on top of that, has always been, and there still is today, the difficulty to accept one's sexuality and to publicly advocate for change. So during your years doing this type of work, you must have faced some type of backlash from your family and the general public. What advice would you give to the younger advocates who are facing this situation today? And I'm going to pose the question to Eswick and Jason. Eswick or Jason, who wants to go first?
Hey, if you don't mind, because of some little technical hiccups, could you repeat the question, please?
Oh, sorry, sure. The panelists that spoke before all mentioned the difficulties there were and the challenges and issues that they faced during their period. So what they didn't mention was the difficulty in accepting your sexuality and then to publicly advocate for change. What type of backlash, if any, did you face from your family and the general public? And what advice would you give to younger advocates today who are facing this situation?
My family. I think, well, although I come from a more or less a small family, yes, five of us, I really grew up with my mom. And so all the back and forth and I should say bickering about my sexuality would have been with my mom. And that was no big, it was nothing big to say that, you know, that she decided to put me out or anything like that. She just would say that she didn't like where I was heading and that I should and she definitely at one point in time didn't like my friends. She would figure, at least she figured my friends were encouraging where I was going, right?
And the public, what kind of backlash you face from the public?
Brandy is just reminding me of my brother here. You know, that's the next story. Because, of course, it's no secret that my brother was also very, very much gay and very, very known in the community. But continuing along with the question, the community, or I should say the general community, it was tough because I grew up in an area in Diego Martin where after my mom died, it was very tough. They would stone the house. I remember sometime in the night, I would be awakened by a big stone dropping on the house. And it made no sense me making a report to the police because if the police asks, did you see who it is? I can't say is George or is Harry or is this one because I didn't see who it is. I know it happened, yes. So from the community where I grew up, where you thought I would have gotten some support because everybody in the community knew me and knew me growing up in the community, and you would get some support. There was no support there. Sorry. You had to survive on your own. And so after a while, you find, to me, the best decision was to move out of the community. Yes. Even became an issue when I started caring for people in my home. You find there were times when I would come into contact with persons who family would have put them out, and I'd have to take them home, and that and all would be an issue. And so at one point in time, I had to actually, I call it a halfway house. I had to actually close down the halfway house, right? Because it wasn't working. And eventually I moved out, I sold the house and I moved out of the area. And that's how it is.
Wow.
Advice to the new people. It is not an easy road to walk, especially if you don't have your family support, the support of your friends and loved ones. If you don't have those support, it is going to be a tough road. And maybe if you survive it, it's because your heart is strong and you're going to win this fight. And that's it.
Thank you, Eswick. Jason? What was it like for you?
I spoke a little bit about this last week, Monday, in my discussions with Rudy. When I was 13, my parents first brought this conversation to me because I was suffering such horrific homophobic bashing that my parents, told me what it meant to be a homosexual. I didn't even know. So in 1992, I performed at a drag show at Stacey Wells's house. And I think it was April, Easter weekend of 1992. And Godfrey Seeley, myself, Gregory Singh, and Wayne performed. And after the show, Debbie Maillard, theater producer, theater performer, came up to me afterwards and she said, listen, you need to do a full show and I want to produce it. So we worked together and produced the Mercedes Growl show. My drag character was named Mercedes Growl. And we did the first ever public performance of a drag show at the Space Theatre in Bretton Hall. And after that show happened, the Thursday following the show, we did the show Friday and Saturday night at midnight at the Space Theatre. And the following Thursday, I was awoken by Debbie and other people calling me to say, go and get a copy of the papers. So I walked on the corner, got to the corner shop, and front page of all the red tops, Punch, Bomb, Mirror, was Homo Holds Concert in City Theatre. Well, needless to say, by the time I reached back home, a couple of hours later, my bags were packed and I was effectively made homeless by my family in St. James. So in 1992, at that point, there was this endemic homophobia where even though my family knew that I was homosexual, the fact that I was actively pursuing theatrical and the voice of standing up for who I was out of the question. So I was made homeless and ended up sleeping by my friend Annabelle Davis's, her family had an estate in Blanchisseuse, and they very kindly let me stay up in the heights of Blanchisseuse for protection. But at the time, it really incentivized Raymond Chukong and John Isaacs, who all of these people were in the show. John Godfrey performed, obviously. And coming out of that, we started to talk about how do we start to fight this endemic homophobia in Trinidad and Tobago. And Raymond himself offered use of his space, the space bar below the theater space, so we could create the Lambda group. So, you know, we have to also recognize how important it is that we use cultural platforms to engage with moving the needle forward for LGBTQ activism.
Thank you. I like how you named the papers the Red Tops. It just occurred to me, yeah, they had similar kind of coloring at the top. So, Brandy, what changes, and some of us have alluded to them, do you see happening in public advocacy around LGBT rights today? Or are we having the same conversations that you and others started many years ago at the beginning of advocacy?
I would say,
Your speaker, yeah.
you mute yourself. Right. I would say, firstly, we have come a long way in terms of persons. There is some form of acceptance, but for the community, it's a lot more than that. It's about respect. And I don't want nobody to accept me. I already accept who I am. I want my trans women, because of packaging, they need to accept, because most people would leave me alone walking down the street. They may not leave some of them. I'm not saying I'm most possible, but I don't know, I can't explain it in terms of what goes on in their mind, but I have friends who would like to be brave and would like to be unapologetic as I am, but the challenges with them is packaging. They don't see themselves as, you know, woman. They still have a lot of flaws, and they still have a lot of, you know, things to, yeah, I need to hide this, I need to do, I need better makeup, I need this, I need that. In 2006, when I got my first job in FB, to work in FB, I didn't have it correct. But you know what? You know what was my motivation? My motivation was I didn't want to see another person die. I didn't want to see another person sick. I didn't want to see another person collapse and you have to take them to the hospital on a wheelchair. And I didn't want to go to a home, one of our homes, and see somebody lying on a bed and how they look. Because I know the look of HIV. And that's what some people will not know, ever know now, because of medication. They would never know what HIV looks like. I'm talking about AIDS. They would never know. But I know what AIDS look like. I've been there. I've seen what AIDS look like. There are things that, seeing that all of that has changed, we still have the challenges of access to care, access and support. We're still not being cared for mentally. We're still not getting, you know, hormone replacement therapy because these women need HRTs. I may not, you know, to complete your package, you must be on your hormones. You must be treating, you know, take that hormone to say, well, okay, to bring that package together, because we're talking about male to female here. And that is what is, there's a lot of things that persons don't understand. And we have a lot of persons, young people, self-medicating now, taking these medication that some of them is not really even, they don't even know the side effects of what is going on in their body, racing off their heart and interfering with their kidneys and all these different things. And I try to explain to them every day, here what? Now, you see, when you're ready to transition is something, you can't tell transition just now, you know. You don't care what you do, you're going and get them birth controls. You're going to do it because your mind, I am ready. Brandy, I am ready. I am ready. And you know, when I started to work in 2006 in FE was to get HRTs on the sexual and reproductive health list. And up to now, look at, I mean, 2006 to now, that is still not a conversation with the Ministry of Health. That is still not happening. And you know, as life goes on, as we see things happening, you have to know, stick for what you know, stick to what you know and try to do what you do better all the time. And the challenges and the issues all remains the same. In some spaces are better and some spaces not as good. Could be even worse.
Thank you. Sharon, what do you think? And also, has a shift occurred in how we advocate and what are we advocating for?
As I think you said it, or somebody said it on the panel, as much as things have changed, a lot still stays the same. I think as a community, we have done a fairly good job at educating the general population, raising awareness. So I think for most of Trinidad and Tobago, they know what the LGBT stands for, and they know that we're present, and they know we've put a face to LGBTQ. They know what lesbians look like, they know what gay men look like, they know what trans women look like, and most of the times I think people are recognizing, wait a minute, they look like my son and my daughter, you know? I think we've been able to bring that awareness to general Trinidad and Tobago. I think where we struggle is we all, and I remember when I came into this thinking that I wanted change to come, I was willing to work hard, I was willing to be loud, but I wanted it to come when I wanted it to come. And I wanted everybody to get on the same bandwagon, you know, let us do this, you know. And then as you started to do the work, you know, and realize that it's a lot of different opinions and different agendas at that table, at the LGBTQI advocacy table, which is fine, because Friends for Life was fighting for life. I was there fighting for women's voices to be heard. Kaiso was at the table fighting for the research and to get that political awareness, you know. As Rudy mentioned, the free forum, when I was cleaning up my house to move, oh my God, how many fucking copies of that thing I had? Trudy, if you see, and you know what is the hardest shit? Is to throw things away. You keep them in a box. So I always say when I dead, my poor child, all of this stuff. But all that to say, everybody, Denny was incredibly passionate about his agenda. And it's okay to be incredibly passionate, but in that passion, we have to realize that our objective is not to do harm. We have enough to battle with from the external community than to be harming each other. You know, I had to go to some empathy training to lower my voice and allow, and also to ask for help. Like when we started the Women's Caucus, we had no model for chat. We copied the men's chat session. Who did you think was our first ever guest speaker to outline how a chat takes place. It was Eswick Padmore was our first guest speaker at the Women's Caucus of Trinidad and Tobago. As we evolved as a caucus, we realized, wait a minute, the trans voices weren't being heard. And we created that opportunity, and we had chat sessions with trans women in our group. We also realized that we needed to engage with gay men. So we also had chat sessions in the Women's Caucus, you know, and I think as a caucus, that was our strength. We recognized in the first few years, it was about us. And then we realized that to really have an impact, we had to engage with the rest of the community to create fora that other people could participate. So we had Stage, which was to expose all of the talent of the LGBT community to wider Trinidad and Tobago. You know, come and see us. We did the same with Pride Market to create opportunities for our folks to make money, but also opening it to the wider Trinidad and Tobago. Because you know what? We are who we are. And there's no shame in being gay. When we talk about self-acceptance, we are citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and we deserve to be at the table, but we also have to demand to be at the table, but also create opportunities where the non-LGBTQ Trinidad and Tobago could come and interact with us, spend their money, engage in dialogue. But I just want to stress that what I'm seeing and hearing is a lot of divisiveness, which again is not that strange, but it's just the tone. There is so much palpable hate, and I don't understand it. And I've had people external to the community who have been copied on emails, calling me and saying, Sharon, how we want to support LGBTQI work in Trinidad, but you all need to get your act together. And they're right. You know, I have no problem. I always say we should air our dirty laundry or in-house and then put on a totally different face for the rest of the world. That's how I view it. And so
can I just echo what Sharon is saying? Because very kindly, the Women's Caucus invited me to be the master of ceremonies for Stage. And it was so incredibly powerful for me to be invited into that space and to have such a central role in speaking for women's rights in the LGBT community. And I think that for me to be powerful in this communication tonight, we must talk about the divisiveness and we must face our internalized demons. If we want to move forward, and Sharon has hit the nail on the head, a lot of people want to support us, but they're not willing to get involved with the internal politics and the infighting. So I really would like us to move the conversation forward on that.
That's exactly where I was taking it in about a question or two, because I was setting the stage for it a little bit more. But as you brought it up, I want to go to Luke. And this cancel culture that we want to call it, or calling people out publicly, they're speaking from hurt and from attacks that's been hurled upon them, and they're therefore repeating the same things that have that they've experienced onto others. What say you?
I want to agree that especially persons who experience pain and all different forms of oppression. Give me 1 second. My apologies. And so, right, yeah, and so that persons who, you know, that kind of thing where people who are hurt other persons, I get that. And I know I experienced that when I was younger, when the elders kind of like Eswick and Godfrey would say, we have to pong to get along. And I would be really incensed by it. And I'm like, no, we don't. We could just get along. But as you move on, you kind of appreciate how human beings are and how they experience the world. I want to say when I took the reins at Friends for Life, I wasn't the president as yet, but Eswick and Cohen gave me a lot of latitude to be able to influence how the organization went. And one of the things that I would say is that because we were in the NGO field, I said, we are going to these meetings. First of all, we are not going early. We have to show up a little bit late because you have to make an entrance. And then we have to walk all the way to the front and sit down because that creates a certain kind of image. Secondly, we're going to be as gay as we can. I don't care if you don't wear makeup or you don't queerify normally, but in this context, we are not just speaking a message, we are wearing a message. And then lastly, I would say, no, not lastly, second to lastly, I would say that when we enter the space, we have to use what I knew in that time going to school, all of the psychology, all of the learning that I gathered to influence the space. And that would be that people have extreme recall for things that happen at the beginning or at the end of a sequence. And so when we get in, we speak first. It doesn't matter what the question is. It doesn't matter if you are saying, could you repeat the question? We speak first and we speak last. It does not matter what we say in between, but we speak first and we speak last. And what happened very quickly in those early moments of Friends for Life was that people began to just look at us. We were in these HIV NGO movements, and if you didn't show up, like I would get a call and say, Luke, wants so meeting. And it was because it was just the way that we used the strategy to be able to influence. One of the hugest things that I really am proud of was when they wrote the first national strategic plan for HIV. They said that we need to work with various kinds of groups, and they outlined groups. They said we need to work with single women, we need to work with churches, we need to work with whatever. And then they said we need to work with men who have sex with men. And then they said like groups like Friends for Life. And I felt so moved that in that moment that there was no other NGO that was being named that way. But Friends for Life was being in that very first NSP. And that was because of a very targeted and strategic kind of way that we wanted to operate. So I want to say that first, put that aside. But secondly, when I see the divisiveness, I really, from my training in social work, I really feel like we need to engage in a space where we, I don't know if it's listen but hear, or you need to hear but listen. One of those ways the old people just say it. But that if you're listening to somebody, try and hear them. That's one. And two, that we communicate with compassion. And so that if I am feeling hurt by something, I'm able to say to somebody else that I am feeling hurt about this, and not necessarily, if I had a shovel and the hoe was together, there's that way that we externalize the argument that really does not personalize it and really does not help the conversation. I think when we engage, that we really say, I feel this way. And the last thing that I really wanted to hit home, especially, and I want to chime in with that conversation about what to say to young people. I used to say in Friends Life, I am an unapologetic faggot. Because faggot was the word. When they say you're a faggot, I said I'm an unapologetic faggot. Just like Brandy says she's unapologetic. And if you move with confidence, there's a way that people respect that. If you decide that who I am, just like Sharon was saying, is exactly right and exactly perfect, and I get to show the world who I am, that people will look at that confidence and go, I think that person belongs, and they will make space for you. It's very difficult to do that when you've grown up and you've consistently heard that you are not, you are half a citizen. It's difficult to do that when the images on television are not like you, so you don't feel like you're a part of the community. It's difficult to do that when you walk into an important space and all of the people in the room do not look like you. However, if it is possible that you can find any small thing that you're confident about and do that well, confidence is infectious. So to begin to infect the other things that you do in your life. Self-esteem is infectious. If I feel good about writing essays and I focus on that so well, pretty soon enough, I'm going to think that I'm really good at picking out clothes. I'm really good at designing my house because it is infectious. So even if you can't, fake it to make it. That would be what I would say.
And I just want to jump in here before you move on. I think it's also important mentoring. I remember when I think I became an effective advocate because I had a really good mentor. And he wasn't an LGBTQ, he was the vice president of programs, a social worker. And he will tell you, he was a social worker that used to, like Eswick, his wife said that when this man started off, he used to bring homeless people home to stay in their house, and give them clothes and teach them how to go on interviews, etc. And he taught me so much of what I am today. And it's about compassion, is when not to say sorry, when you're the only Black voice around a table of white people, to be extremely articulate, confident, and unapologetic, to ask for what you want. Ask for what you want. But anyway, all that to say, it is important to have mentors, not only to guide us, but to be shoulders to cry on in those tough times.
I wasn't planning to just move on yet because I wanted to take this kind of divisiveness that we have in the community and dive a little bit into it, because I see it as impacting the work that we want to do, and it's slowing down the change just that we see to come about, and really, taking some of the energy away. So I have witnessed a lot the them and us, or them versus us narrative, and the choice of NGOs not to support each other, or if not directly not supporting each other, not wanting to, or not seeing it necessary to share certain things. So sometimes you have to reinvent the wheel. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a lot of work to do, as I see it, and NGOs. Each of our NGOs here that work with the TLGBTQ community right now does something different, as I see it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but so how can we stop that kind of them versus us? And what advice would you give to anyone wanting to advocate for the community to help them navigate the hurt that they will experience while doing this type of work? This question is for anybody.
I think that, Sharon, are you going to talk?
I was just going to talk about mediation, that
Okay.
somebody external to the community being part and parcel of hearing and seeing and reading what was going on, suggested that. And they didn't even talk about, they were saying that you really need an objective mediator, not somebody who has any connection to any one of the particular groups. But go ahead, Luke.
Thanks. I was going to say, sometimes I know it is difficult, and particularly navigating conflict is difficult, but it is really lots of thems and lots of uses. When we even go through, in even our small community, the LGBTQIA plus W, I don't know if you realize that it's a lot of different persons with a lot of different perspectives, particularly in how they live lives. If it was possible, it is entirely possible, if we could imagine the vast difference in the experience of the young people that Brandy are talking about and the young people that I might have grown up with, or Rudy might have grown up with, you realize how very vastly different the experiences are. And so when we engage in the community, to first accept that, I think we can accept that there is they're thems and us's. And so when we come to the table, as Sharon saying, well, we could air dirty laundry here. I kind of don't mind that. I'm not afraid at all about conflict, about deep emotions. And I'm very thankful. A lot of that has to do with my training. But I'm not afraid of it. And we can engage in it a way. But as I say, if we engage with compassion, it's possible to hear where people are coming from. And when the most profound thing we can do for the them or for the other is to validate their experience. So when we get there, we must insist that our experiences are validated, yes. But when people want their experiences validated, the most compassionate thing to do is to say, I hear you. Yes, that did happen to you, and it should not have happened. And so then that's one. So I want us all as LGBT leaders to not be afraid of being vulnerable, not be afraid of the conflict, not be afraid of going to the tougher emotions. When we think about theories of change and realizing that there are moments when people can't even imagine change could happen. And then there's that moment when they start to contemplate it. There's that moment when they want it to happen. But even still, it does not get to the point where they're doing action. That is coming low down in theory of change. And so when we look at our friends and we look at all of us engaging in this work, imagine in our head, where are they on the continuum? And then that's when we can realize, when I created the therapeutic intervention for Friends for Life, it was entirely based on this notion of resistance. I felt that in the sphere of politics and in the sphere of activism and therapeutic work, that we did not engage in this notion of resistance. Social workers talk about resistance as something that we don't want. We don't want a resistant client. But when I looked at what resistance could do for our community, myself even engaging in the act of resisting homophobia made me a better person and was supremely therapeutic. And so kind of engage that. Don't run from it. And I think when somebody displays a strong sense of resistance, I think we should embrace it. I used to go out, and this is after Brandy. Brandy was done big when I was coming out. I used to go out like Brandy and go down by Hawk and Spit to line with them, with the drag queens. And it was the only point where they were so fierce. And that is what attracted me to them. And there were so many that would say, don't take them on because that one will stab you with an ice pick, or something else would happen. And I would go, listen, if a man tells you something and you stab him with an ice pick, she stab him with an ice pick. Like, I want to celebrate resistance. We'll figure out the police report afterwards. But I was still afraid. And it wasn't until, and this was the last time I went to Hawk and Spit, it wasn't until we went down by Hawk and Spit, Lyman. And so we drinking, and then, you're Lyman and drinking, I fall asleep. When I didn't even realize I fall asleep. And all of a sudden, something is hitting me in my head. And I jerk up, and this strong, butch, black lesbian with beautiful cane rows, she looked across at me. Her eyes were intense and harsh, and I was beginning to get frightened. And as I looked at her, she mouthed the words to me, don't fall asleep. And I thought to myself that was protecting your people. That was a different experience that I've had anywhere else in the party. Listen, if I'm putting me in a toilet in the party, I'm not quite sure my friends would come and tell me, Luke, come out the toilet. But that lesbian really cared about me. It was the last time I went because I realized that that's not a place I want to be and falling asleep. But what I wanted to take from it, when people display qualities that we love, resistance, fighting back, being loud, being heard, taking up space, when they display those qualities, it does not matter if it is for you or against you. I think we are able to say that is what we want in our community, and that's what's able to fight with us. And I think when we do that, those people are going to hear and they're going to join the table. It is sad that I'm speaking to the panel now and almost like putting a burden on all of us that we must be super accepting. And I'm not saying that really. I really am not. You can tell I'm very passionate about it, and I'm really passionate about all the different ways that we can resist and all the different ways that we can engage in the fight. And so I think just that alone is very uniting, to be able to say, yes, I love it, and that's what we want. I'll stop.
Jason, I know you wanted to speak on this.
You know, it's wonderful to hear the kind of passion that Luke is speaking about, and the vision he has for embracing all of our work. But that is not what is happening. There's been very active work against the work that I'm doing. And the work that I'm doing is measurable. It has achieved certain successes. And yet today, I'm still battling the negativity that is being thrown against me personally. Somebody posted something 2 days ago that was so disgusting that I literally found it so abhorrent that an LGBT person could be speaking about me in such tones, saying that I was presenting myself as some kind of messiah. Now, I'm very clear about what I am engaging with. I am engaging with the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. That is my right. I do not need the support or gatekeepers to give me the keys to their gatekeeping. I am allowed to do whatever I want to do with the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Yet today, still, there are elements within the LGBT community who want to malign my name and malign my work and malign the amazing lawyers who have done tremendous work, pro bono work. They have worked for free to achieve the amazing achievement that we had on April 12th, 2018. So I'm not buying this. I want to know what this divisiveness is and what is festering it. We are dealing with a festering boil on LGBT rights in our community. People who are invested in trying to divide us within our own community. And we need to have that discussion. This discussion tonight is about 20 years past and 20 years in the future. I am much more invested in discussing what the 20 years future looks like. When we talk about the amendment that failed in the Senate last week, Monday, we must talk about that and why it failed. You had the head or designer of imagination. I don't know what they are, what they represent, but there has been no discussion, proper discussion about why that failed and the decisions about why it failed. There are very specific strategic decisions that made that choice right. And we need to discuss about how we move forward as a community for the next 20 years. This is not about the past, and it's not about the present either. It's about where we are moving forward to and what we want to achieve in the future. There's a great deal that we can all work towards. And I'm very proud that I have put the blocks there that we can build upon. But I'm not going to engage with people who are trying to tear me down or my lawyers down or the Attorney General or other people who are doing this work.
I love what you're saying, Jason. I remember that, and I'm going to say the sad part about me and why I'm not a good television person is that I say shit at the top of my mind that's not palatable. And so there was I remember the time when Kaiso was in Loggerheads with yourself, and not the movement, sorry, and your challenge, sorry. And I remember being in the meeting and saying, it does not matter how much you don't like the person, Jason Jones, but we cannot come down on the wrong side of history. You just can't. If you think in the long term, it's not going to make sense. And I want to credit my even if a minute amount, I want to credit myself for Kaiso then joining the Jones versus AG movement towards the eventual constitutional challenge and overturn of the law.
I have to challenge that. I have to
Oh,
challenge
sorry.
that. They
Go ahead.
never
Yeah.
came down. They never came down in support of my case. In fact, for the last 2 years, they've tried to invisibilize me and my lawyers in achieving that judgment. I challenge that.
I take that challenge, and I would step down from not knowing too much about what's happening.
Well, if you'd like to look at a document, The Guardian in the United Kingdom, written by Joshua Surtees, Colin Robinson made a statement saying, as a movement, do we support the Jason Jones challenge? No, we do not. So, I don't know how Colin and Kaiso could make that decision, because there was no support from the community. There was no engagement with the community on that statement. But there is a statement by Colin saying, we do not support the Jason Jones judgment.
Okay, I was also going to extend a challenge to you. I felt personally kind of a bit of pit in my stomach. On Friends for Life's 20th anniversary, I remember giving the feature address and talking about the bricks that we lay down. First of all, the bricks that Friends for Life inherited from the people that came before us, Lambda. I don't know if, I can't remember the group that you said you were a part of, but those bricks, and then the bricks that we now were challenged to rest down, because there was a foundation done and we had to build the walls. And so I felt a bit hurt when you referenced the challenge to the Buggery laws and spoke about it as being foundation bricks. And so I must kind of say to you that.
Okay, well, what I would answer to that is, if you look at the history of LGBT human rights around the world, almost 75% of the forward momentum has been about dismantling the Buggery laws. And that's why I did this work. It was because I looked at the facts and figures that were presented before me. And I also was able to engage lawyers who were able to do this work. Now, this case has cost 6 million TT dollars, money that I and my legal team have donated to Trinidad and Tobago. Friends for Life have not even said thank you. You have never said thank you to me, not even thank you.
So, folks, we all feel some hurt, and we need to really listen and hear each other. Jason, no one can say that you have not done or moved the needle forward. Friends for Life has done a lot, and sometimes I wonder if it's more that we should focus on what has achieved and what could be achieved. No.
Yeah, Faye, I would have just liked a thank you. It's simple as that. A simple thank you from any of the LGBTQ communities and organizations of Trinidad and Tobago would have been nice.
And I know you received from some. PrideTT for one continues to thank you.
PrideTT this year have said thank you and have offered me 10% of whatever they raise to support my work. This is the first time that PrideTT has done it.
No, I think PrideTT did it on the anniversary in 2019 of your case, and PrideTT did it, or it was at that point Pride Arts Festival. But we're not going to get into who did this and what did this. Let's put it like this. We together, you yourself, and everybody else on this panel, and many watching here, have sacrificed, have given up their time and energy, and has moved the needle forward. And we continue to do it even tonight as we're having. And, you know, we've spent a little time on this, but I'm wondering, and I
don't
don't
like
think...
my pressure is I say pressure.
Hi, hi.
Hi, 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 hi. This is exactly why there is no, should I say, unity in the community, because we continuously look for issues and things to bite and get at each other.
Right, I was just about...
Jason, the thank you coming in the mail. Okay, it's coming in the mail. We're not going to get anywhere if we continue like this. We are not going to get anywhere. Yes? We have to learn to move on. We have to learn to forget. Sometimes we have to forgive and forget what happened in the past in order to move on. And so sometimes we get stuck in the I don't like what X say and I don't like what Y say. And so I'm not doing anything with trans coalition because Brandy says so and so. And I'm not doing anything with women caucus because I don't like Sharon, because Sharon feels she took this. And you know, that kind of thing. Let us get rid of all of those things.
Yeah.
Let us get rid of all of those things.
Sharon, I acknowledge that you had your hand up for a while. I was trying to get in for a bit. So go ahead.
And I think it's important that we recognize that we're all doing work on different levels and with different constituent members. So Jason is doing the political kind of thing, so is Kai. So I don't give a fuck about that. I gave a fuck about the women who love women in Trinidad and Tobago having a voice, having their needs, all who think they're going to hell, as simplistic as people think that sound, who believe they're going to hell because they love women, women who had never had a pap smear because they never had a dick in them. You know, those people were the people I cater to. And I think that, and sometimes, and Jason, hello, sometimes your feelings just get real hurt. My feelings get real hurt over the years. And what I always kept at the fore was this was not about me. At the end of the day, it wasn't about me. If somebody who doesn't even know who I am 20 years from now would look back as a lesbian woman, you know, who's a kid now and say, oh my God, da, 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 and take it for granted, you know, I'd be so happy that they get to the point that they could take this shit for granted. But what I really wanted to acknowledge was a comment by Verlia asking about how do we plan to address classism, colorism, and within the LGBT community. And I want to say, Verlia, to people, and I've been saying this again, things that you say for years, that what we experience in our little community, in our community, real small compared to largest Trinidad society, is a microcosm of what is going on in Trinidad and Tobago. We are, and as Luke said, we have to begin, we are a classist society, right? We are classist. We are colorist society because we were raised, when you look at colonial days, it was almost embedded in your head that you had to put some cream in your fucking coffee. You know, our pride was to try to move as far away from Black as possible. And now as we try to exert as a society, how to be Black. And we're still trying to be Black and exclude the poor Blacks, eh? We still want to, you know, who more Black? Is that we have as a nation to deal with some really insidious demons within us. And this is as a nation. And so it is a lot of responsibility to put on a small community that already battling all that we battling with homophobia, with people living in cemeteries, with abuse. And I always tell people, when your primary concern is things like housing and food, HIV is so, safe sex is so down the list, right? When your primary concern is getting your child from home to school safely, colorism, they don't even, that language does not exist, you know? It is, I always say, the haves in our society, the educational haves, the economic haves, it is our responsibility, as it is with some of the issues, to take the lead, you know, to create the change that needs to happen while people fighting up to survive. And so Vernie, go ahead.
And Sharon, thank you so, so much. And thank you, Eswick, and thank you, Kerwin. You know, I think by me voicing my personal hurt, let me tell you, I've put my life on the line for this work. And thank the three of you so much for standing up right now and saying, thank you, Jason, and we recognize you, Jason. This is something that has not happened. And I will say this, you know, I'm a human being and I've given a lot to this work. And it just would have been nice for people to put everything aside and just say, okay, Jay, thank you. You know, we recognize that you've given a lot and we recognize what you've achieved. And I recognize what all of you have given to our community, right? But what we have to discuss now is the 2020 vision moving forward. How do we move forward together as a community? How do we mend these bridges? How do we heal ourselves? That's a conversation I want to have. I'm not pointing out my hurt because, you know, I'm so hurt and I just want you all to feel my hurt. I'm pointing out the hurt because I want us to move forward from all of this hurt. I want us to build bridges. Sharon, I think you're an amazing advocate. And you know that. I've supported you from time immemorial. Faye and I sat in the basement of the Space Bar in 1992. We haven't even spoken about that history of where that all began. Eswick, you and I have been in rooms where we have discussed and shared and built and loved each other. This is about moving forward. How do we move forward? That's the conversation I really want us to embrace right now. How do we move forward?
That definitely will be on the cards, Jason. I recognized Rudy for a while. He wanted to say something.
Hi guys. Just sorry. We're doing 3 computers sharing. Better. You know, it's an interesting jump off point from what Jason just said and one or two of the other points. Speaking as someone who is sometimes stuck in the middle of the elders who I see as my elders and the ones who are younger coming up, speaking as someone who is stuck between classes sometimes because there's privilege and then there's privilege. And I might have a lot of privileges, but there are people with even more privileges than I have. Speaking as somebody who is of mixed descent, you know, a lot of middle, you see things from a different perspective. And I think that in moving forward, especially with those coming up, they have to look at exactly what's happening here tonight, for example. we have all over the years, 20 plus years of activism is not a little bit of time. It is more time than some people who are doing activism work now were even alive. What they need to take from this, Faye, is that look at us here. We are sitting down on this panel with differences across the board. Brandy's experience is completely different to mine. But Brandy, we can have a conversation and empathize with each other. You could recognize that even with my privilege, I still get hurt. And I could recognize that there are things you have gone through that I will never even imagine. But we can work together to take this thing forward. Because as you get older, I suppose they say, what age is wasted? Youth is wasted on the young, but wisdom sometimes is wasted on the old because we getting older. But it took us this long to recognize that the very things that make us who we are, that give us the confidence and the gusto to stand up against the world and to represent for people, it's a double-edged sword. It cuts both ways, because that same confidence and armor that I put on, sometimes it becomes who I am. And sometimes if you come at me, you might be my best friend. If you come at me a different way, you're getting cut down with the armor, with the sword too. And the same shield is my barriers are up. As we used to say a long time, our banners raised, right? Yeah. So it is moving forward. If you all as younger generations can take what you are seeing here away from it, take it and don't repeat some of the missteps that we are talking about, and practice self-care. I have never been as hurt in my own community when compared to outside of the LGBTQI community, because they say the people closest to you are the ones that could cut the deepest. When you get some of those bows and arrows and slings flung at you, and people tell you that you shouldn't have anything to complain about, right? They don't know your story. They don't know what some of us have gone through to get to where we are. But that's why we have learned to take self-care and to process our own trauma in different ways. And that is important as well, because if you don't process it, it will linger there and fester, I think, to use Sharon's or someone else's word. And just to also say that that fierceness that we use to put on our mask sometimes to face the world can come back to bite us. And that is why we need to be able to support one another in a different way. And if you have an issue with somebody, I remember a long time, if we had an issue with each other, yes, we would gossip about it. But you see, with the advent of social media, that has exacerbated the conflict. Because instead of being able to come and cuss me out here outside the party and say, girl, what the hell wrong with you? I hear you say so and so. So we could deal with it right here and move on. Now you don't even want to engage the person. You put up a set of bacchanal on social media and encourage this unnecessary
one moment, Jason. Let Rudy just tie up everything.
And I think all of us as people who've been through it, I think we all agree that that is not necessary.
Rudy, when we spoke last week Monday, I suggested that we have a meeting of reckoning where everybody sits in a room and we have all these discussions. This has not happened ever in the history of LGBTQ plus community. We don't sit in rooms together. We don't sit facing each other and having these difficult conversations. And I don't think in an environment like this, with a limited amount of time, that we are going to be able to do it. What I would love to see is that PrideTT take the initiative and create a space where we can all sit in a room and have these difficult conversations and sort out all of these differences. that doesn't mean that we come out of the room with all of us with one direction. I think we all have different ideas of how we achieve equality. And I think that's a powerful thing. But I think the time of reckoning is upon us. And we must sit in a room, whether it be virtual or physical or both, where we can all sit and hash out all of these issues.
Thank you.
I don't know if I'm allowed to speak. I've been observing.
Please do.
And I have a question for you, Jason. Since I've been observing, I'm very interested and I want to take this time to thank you. I've never met you before, but I want to know, what is your vision? Again, you touched on it. What is your vision for the future? Like, what legal battles do you see coming on the forefront for Trinidad, and what would you like to see our agenda being as a group? I know firsthand how important the law is. So I sit here and I really want to thank you, because I understand that you are the one with the wrecking ball really clearing the way for what could be a hindrance for us as a community moving forward if we're not even recognized or represented in the laws that Trinidad and Tobago have in place. So yeah, I recognize what you're saying, but I'm very interested in figuring out what exactly does that advocacy look like in the legal forefront. And again, there are a lot of people that are here that I would like to know why they're here, because I know why I'm here. But we're all speaking in terms of what we know, but I think there needs to be a common thread that unites us. And I think we could start here by, first of all, I would like to know why Pride UWI is here. Brandy, thanks for sharing. Sharon, hi. And Faye, thank you for being the moderator. And everybody that I haven't met, I want to say hello, but I know everyone that's here looking on has something that they want to say, has a reason for being here. But I would like to ask you, Jason, what is the vision moving forward? And thank you for everyone that has worked hard in the past. And how are you working forward to passing on the torch? Because we got to educate, we got to mobilize. There's always a mobilizer. There's somebody that is organizing as well. So I want to know how everyone now is actually seeking ways to pass the torch or to bring in more people in the fold. That's it for me.
Thank you for your question. Is it Jill? Okay.
Yes, it's Jill. Yes, it's Jill.
Oh, great. Thank you. And Jill has just opened up our questions from the rest of the public. So Jason, do you mind answering that, since it was put to you in a nutshell?
Thank you so much, Jill, for the question, and thank you for your friend request tonight. I saw it, but I didn't answer. But now that I know who sent me the friend request on Facebook, I will obviously admit you. What I would say to you is this. The work that I'm doing is very specific, strategic work, and it is about engaging with the judiciary and the parliament and our constitution. So it's very difficult for me to speak about my strategy in a public space like this. What I would say to you is this, that anybody who wishes to engage with me on these discussions, please reach out to me. My Facebook is open. There are ways to reach out to me. You can reach out to me privately, and I will have these conversations. But I will not, and I repeat, I will not have public discourse about the strategy that is still engaged with the judiciary. This is not how you are going to be successful in a legal case. And to show you an example of how we can ruin things, In 2012, a document was leaked to the press about this kind of high-level discussion. And that destroyed the trust of not just the government in power then, but the government in power now. So I really stress for everybody listening, if you wish to ask me about what I am doing, please do so, but please do so privately. I'm not going to engage in public discourse about a matter that is before our judiciary, that is going to our Supreme Court. It's not the way that things are done. But thank you so much for the question, and I will message you. Thank you.
Okay, we have, go ahead.
Thanks for clarifying that, Jason. I think that is so important that we make those things very, very clear. And so I really like that. I also want to say that there has been a very human exchange. I don't know about the rest of the call, but at least for myself, with yourself and Rudy, where I think I've gotten a little bit closer to you all. I think that I kind of feel for the way that you've engaged with the movement better, and I'm really glad for that. There's not a story. I just want to say, I want to tell a very snippet about an experience.
A snippet, Luke, a snippet.
Oh, I'm going to go on for about, at least 60 seconds. But there's Brandy would know Tina. Tina is a trans woman that I've known for many years. Love her to death. And Tina would always say, Tina is just barely educated. I don't even think she finished primary school. She would say, I'm not educated, but I'm communicated. And when she said, she would kind of pop her hip and put her hands akimbo. But the point is that Tina understood that there were a lot of different ways of knowing and a lot of different ways of communicating and talking. And so sometimes when we get bogged down in a very specific way of communicating and we lock out all the other experiences or all the other ways, that then we miss all the different things that people are saying. We exist in very different spaces. If I think of myself as a Black gay man growing up in a Catholic community, it's a very different space from an Trinidadian person growing up in a very rural experience. We exist in all different spaces. And because of that, it means that we bring to the table a vast number of experiences. How is it, not how is it, but how do we open our eyes to be able to see all the different ways that people are communicating with us? So I wanted to bring that first. There was a part of the conversation that I really don't like, and Eswick, I know you can take a jab from me because he is my mother and you raised me. But when we say to certain people, don't study it. Nah, forget that. Nah, don't take it on. Forget the past. Let's move on from now. There's a way that we also say to them, everything that has made you who you are does not matter. What matters is what we are doing right now. And I don't think that those two, those competing ideologies are destined for togetherness. There has to be a way that we embrace all what is. So all that Jason was before, all of which I don't know. And it's so sad that I have to say this. But as somebody who I thought paid attention very much to the LGBT community in Trinidad and Tobago, I did not know Jason's experience before he came to challenge the Buggery laws. All of who he is before comes to bear on how we move and how we strategize. And so I think all of who we are should come to bear on how we strategize. I think Sharon hit the nail on the head and we are pussyfooting around it. But there's a way that colonialism, there's a way that being the ownership of global North European countries has made our experience, that indentured servitude, that slavery, that colorism, that classism, that has made our experiences so very nuanced, but also when you speak to the person so very entirely about them. I am my entire world. I can sit here and I know for certain that if I meditate really hard and I don't know, smoke a bunch of weed, smoke a bunch of weed, that I am going to even doubt the concept that there is anything outside my existence. And so I'm bringing that up to say that a person is their entire world. And so if we are going to engage with 10 different people in a room, we're engaging with 10 entirely different worlds. And if at any point in time we point to a person and we say, Jason Jones, because you are the color that you are, because you are coming from living in your experience in the UK, you do not know at all what's going on in Trinidad and Tobago, and get out of the space that we are actually dismissing an entire world, and that should not happen. And I really want to say that we have done yourself a disservice by not seeing the very same way that we want to be seen, by not seeing. Pulling back from that, when I live in this country, and as a social worker, it means that everybody comes to me and tells me their problems. When I live in this country, and there were people being evicted from their homes, there were people who were losing their jobs, and you couch it in whatever words, your contract is over and we're not going to renew it. There are people who are trying to transition, and as soon as it look a little funny, you know that your job is in peril. That if you don't, as Brandy was saying, transitioning don't come when you tell it to come in. It comes from somewhere deep inside, so it comes out, and it has to come out at the time it has to come out. When there are people who are so poor that a cemetery is attractive, if Brandy telling you that some man leaving his house, wherever his mother and father is, wherever it is, to come and live with some trans person in a cemetery, it means that my authentic self is so attractive and so beautiful to me that I will do it no matter what, and I would live in a cemetery. That has to somehow make its way into the discourse about how we fight. And so I will tell you, Jason, that when we engaged in that, and the CAISO's focus was on changing the Equal Opportunities Act, I felt that personally, because it meant that if the law and the Equal Opportunities Act changed tomorrow, thousands of my clients' lives are going to change tomorrow. And I would also say that when your challenge came and the Buggery laws was going to be repealed, and I'm like, nah, so we can't get arrested for bullying. Who's getting arrested anyhow? When I saw the movement, when I saw the fire in the zeitgeist, when I saw every young person tuning into it, it was clear to me that we cannot come down on the wrong side of history, because more, no, that's not more, just as equal as changing the Equal Opportunities Act, the Buggery law was going to ignite a movement that was going to be unprecedented, because we need people. Sharon would always tell you we need warm bodies. If there are not warm bodies standing outside Parliament, we don't have a chance. And that is why what you did was so important, because you tapped into the zeitgeist. And I think that you ignited a movement that, I'm sorry, began PrideTT. As much as I think Pride, and please bear me out, as much as we might, as PrideTT kind of supports you in your work, I really think that the zeitgeist was so right, and it came across at the right time. And all of these things coalesced to make what we are happening here happen. It's very clear to me. I don't watch 2 years into the future. I watch 50 years into the future. It's very clear to me. Even the fighting, even the difficult conversation is what has to happen, because that is what's going to make us go better in the future. And I relinquish my time to the moderator.
Thank you, Luke. And I think you really and truly tied it up as to what needs to happen. We have a question from Travis, and I think this ties it up. He asked, what can we do differently now than we did in past years? And Luke, you said it tonight, and it was said by others, we need to listen to hear, not listen to respond so much, but listen to hear, listen to the different voices, listen to what's being said before we try to respond. And you're right. I think a movement has started. It was started. I mean, it started a long time ago, but yeah, it got that needed energy, that fuel to move on. Sharon, what do say you?
Oh, what just came to my mind is that elections is August fucking 10th.
Yes, ma'am.
mean, now and then we need to show up at every political rally. Just show up as a group. I don't know if the CAISO brochure is still available, but at least I thought there was going to be a longer period before the election got called. But I mean, in the short time, show up, get people who are turning up for those, what you call them, the rallies, shake them up, make them feel a little uncomfortable. I remember doing it years ago, and it was an amazing feeling, getting abused by people telling you, but you know, you were there and in their faces. That's what just came to mind, and I said I had to share it. I don't know who doing the mobilizing has got on like a right there, right?
So that's something PrideTT discussed before leading up to all this, and we do have a survey going on. It's called, sorry, I muted myself. So yeah, PrideTT discussed this. We knew it was an election year, so one of the things that we put out and we're asking people to complete is a manifesto survey, because we wanted to find out what your needs were. It's a needs assessment. And we want to use that to build a manifesto, to put it out there. We've also had town halls with, we had the first one last week, or was it the beginning of this week? No, last week, because today's Monday. With a representative from the MSJ. There's supposed to be another one tomorrow night, I believe, is it? Wednesday, with another political party. So we are reaching out to them. And as you say, Sharon, we're kind of like getting in their face. I'm not sure with COVID if there's going to be any kind of rallies and what type of size that would be. But we would have something for them. And yes, you're right. We all have to come out. We have to be visible. There's a question from Nikhil, I think. Sorry, I think I haven't pronounced correctly. The question from Nikhil is, how do we navigate the thin line between speaking up and raising awareness and the risk of speaking over and drowning out the voices of the people in the communities we are trying to advocate for? And I think we were talking about some of that, covering over the last 30 minutes or maybe more. Is there anything else anybody would like to add to this?
I have no risk. Listen to me, yeah? If you are your unapologetic self, even when somebody looks at you sideways, you are living your truth. And I say it's up for everybody else. Even when you do it, you are demonstrating what a person living their truth is supposed to be. So I'm not afraid of it. Be loud and be there. Even if you're over talking somebody else, fuck them. I would say the exact same thing that I'm saying here. I would say it also to the CAISO group. I'd also say it to my friends for Life Region, and I'd also say it to every last one of my clients. Because I think that really is the crux of it. Can we imagine a world where everybody is just their authentic self? Ah, man, that is what I'm living for.
And then also, Luke, when we talk about living our authentic selves, not everybody wants to be loud. You know what I mean? So when people talk about drowning out voices, sometimes we are called to be the voice. For people who don't want, they will be like, they will come and they will whisper into your ear, this is what I need. But I don't want my face out there. I can't afford my name to be out there. Speak for me. And so I think I speak even louder when I speak in for more than one person. You know what I mean? That's when I get like unstoppable and really like vulgar. When when I feel like, you know, that I speak on behalf of. And so when we talk about community, I think we all play different roles. And I think it's okay. Not everybody has to be on the front line marching up and down. You know, some people will write a check. I remember that's how the Women's Caucus of Trinidad and Tobago became registered. Somebody who you never hear her name because she said make sure her name never came out, underwrote that entire expense and had her accounting firm handle that whole registration process. And that was her contribution. So her voice lives with the few people that knew, because we were forbidden to talk about it, you know, but it is to allow people to contribute how they feel most comfortable without shaming them. You know, why you not doing more? Why you not, you know, allow people to come from their comfort zone, bring what they wish to bring to the table. And if everybody do what they're most comfortable doing, then I think, you know, we'll be kind of okay. And I want to add before we go anywhere else, the young people, because right before I left Trinidad, I kept saying from a particular high school, I was approached by 5 young ladies who were between the ages of 14 and 16, who were exploring their sexuality and were leaning towards being same gender loving, and were asking about what was there for them and whether they could join the Women's Caucus Safe Space. And I had to be really honest. There is minors and legal risks. And I remember trying to talk with, I don't like to say this, but it's not a bad thing, a church, a real open church though, like a priest of mine, a friend of mine, about how do we create safe spaces for same gender loving youth or exploring that, because their parents would less likely question if they go in to meet in a church, if you get my drift. But it was really, how do we get really creative to begin to make it less tough for young people? Because some of us knew, it wasn't tough for me because I was an old bird when I came out, but for young people, as they come out, not to have to go through, don't be laughing at me, Brandy. Okay, I was an old bird. But anyway, no, seriously, for our young people, and I'm talking about young, I mean the teenagers, how do we, and maybe we Pride, how do we, I don't know, y'all know what I'm trying to say here.
Could I interject there? And I totally hear what Sharon and Luke are saying, but I also want to reinvigorate a space where people can speak however softly they want to speak, however they wish to speak. And this is what, you know, Sharon and Luke, with all due respect, we must give room over for people to be able to speak. And, you know, there's a huge power in what we do, but there's also an enormous power that is coming up that we must give over to. And that means our silence. And that means our, not just silence, but our giving over of platforms to these new voices coming up. And I really, and that question is one of the most powerful questions for me for the whole of PrideTT20 2.0, which is, how do we give our platforms over to new voices?
So I'm glad Jason asked that, because Faye, like tonight is a prime example. It's co-moderated by an elder and a young person, Pride UE.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Faye, who's a founding member of Lambda and other groups. That's what we've always asked, is use our platform. Come and make it yours. We put in the work to create this platform, as Luke said, building on momentum of the past, not ignoring it and saying, well, we don't want to be associated with those people or what Jason is doing or what Colin did or what Luke did or Eswick. We created a platform. Bring yourself. It hurts me to see 50 plus events and there are people who choose not to be included, And that is a call to action for all young people who will see this on social media or will hear this call. Come forward. We will stay quiet, as Jason said. Some of us, we will know when to stay quiet, and you all will speak loudly, and we will push you all up and give you all the support, right? As you did it for us, we are doing it for others now. So I agree with Jason completely. We have to know when to stay quiet, but use the platforms that we are creating, that Jason has created. If you want to take up legal action, you now have a template. Go, talk to him. He's made a call. Get advice. Do it. We'll help you.
Shahan?
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
you
If I
know
may,
that.
sorry
you
to cut
know,
you across.
That's okay. You and I have talked earlier on today, and we talked about today's generation who seems to want progress now. And there are, yet we know that things won't happen overnight.
Right.
How are you planning as a young person to stay motivated after hearing what you've heard tonight and the other nights before? I mean, what are you taking away from all of this?
So before I answer your question, Jason, so I do not think that Pride we extended their courtesies and thank yous for your hard work in the past and your hard work that will be upcoming. So let me take this opportunity to thank you sincerely on behalf of myself, my team, and my members for all the hard work you are doing and will continue to do for us. So Faye,
we did say this is the co-founder of PrideTT20. We did say thank you, but we were very much smaller at the time, so you probably didn't see the post. Yeah, but we do thank you. Yes.
Thank you. I really appreciate
and we do
this.
appreciate
Thank
the
you.
work that you've done and all the other people that came before you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're most welcome, Jason. Okay, so to answer your question, Faye, is that what I will take away and try to extend to the members of PrideTT20 who aren't here is that learn. We need for us to get what we want. As you said, it cannot happen overnight. We need to work and fight for it, for what we want. And the only way to do that is involve ourselves and put ourselves out there and learn from the elders of the community, such as you, Sharon, Rudy. I'm sorry to categorize you with in terms of the elders, but you are an elder in this side. My apologies. But you guys, because you guys have been through a lot. Some might say the worst at that point in time in your activism. We might possibly have to go through far worse. The future is it's unwritten yet. And we are the people who will have to write in terms of actually write the future and continue your work, because I fondly shared that my coming out story wasn't all that, and the struggles I go through on a day-to-day basis being a part of this community and such, and it's because of your support that I am able to continue to do that, because we, the young people, we need to pick up the mantle and put ourselves out there to carry on the work that you guys started, because you guys risked a lot to start what you started, and we have to continue it. It's well and good. We want the most common thing young people want in the LGBTQIA plus community is that same-sex marriage, those along those lines of stuff, but we have to work for it. We can't just say we want it and not put in the effort or not attend meetings such as these to hear what the elders have to say, because this was an amazing meeting. Granted that I didn't say anything much. I left it all up to Faye because Faye is Faye. Faye know what she doing. So I was,
Don't sell yourself short.
yes, but
That's
I
the beginning to hurt me in my belly, okay? I just letting you all know this fucking elder talk. Oh God. Thank
my apologies,
Sharon, I'm going to
Sharon.
make a crown with it for you to wear. Get used to it.
But I mean, we need to rally, and this was a meeting that I think younger people or more young folk should have turned out to, because you all had a lot to share and you all had a lot to give. And I hope that me being here, and I saw a few other members from Pride UE were on as well, that we could take away something, a lot of things from this, and hopefully share it with the members that weren't here. And to bluntly and nicely answer Jill's question about why is Pride UE here. Pride UE is here to represent the university community, because as of now, I have attended the University of Trinidad and Tobago and have friends at other universities, and we are the only university that has a Pride group. If I am not mistaken, I don't think I am, like an open out Pride group. And I think by an extension of them, we are here to represent all the university students within Trinidad and Tobago who may be part of the Pride community, whether they are out or closeted. So to answer your question, Jill, that is why we are here, and to lend representation and lend a younger mindset to PrideTT. And we have been partnered with PrideTT for Pride Month for a number of years, if I am not mistaken as well.
Can I just say, Shahan?
Yeah, Sharon.
Right. I will tell you, if I was 18 or 19 or 20, in all fairness, because I remember, I always tell people, I always remember my days, you was not catching me on a forum like this on a night of the week. And what night is this?
Monday night.
Oh, well, Monday was my sleep night. It was partying and liming from Tuesday right through to Sunday. Monday was my night off. And so what I will tell you is also look at creative ways to reach your community. Just like Rudy, when I worked with PSI Caribbean, and we did outreach, NASTAD, remember Eswick and Cyrus, and so on. We would set up tables at parties in the height of the fete and have my condoms and so on. And as they come to get the condoms, you ask them to fill out a quick survey,
Yeah.
we gave them whatever information that we had and we wanted to share. So with your group, with the younger group, they need to get the message, but we need to meet, of course, young people where they are. You all need to meet y'all young people, since we elders, y'all young people need to meet young people where they are and get creative about sharing the information. And that's where the work comes in for you guys, using all the fancy shit y'all got now to,
Social media.
social media, have a couple sex parties, whatever young people do, to get the message across. And I'm being flippant here, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get you, Sharon. I get you totally.
Oh, and the last thing I want to say, the work didn't start with us. Let us know that we are one of the ways. This started way before us. People been living the life in Trinidad and Tobago long before. So, and I've vexed that Cyrus is nowhere part of this. I've vexed that Colin Robinson are calling all in names, the people that I love, that I fight with on a everyday basis. Not Cyrus, but Colin. I wish Colin was here because he would have added another flavor to the mix. Anyway, I'll get in reminiscent. Y'all see me crying a couple of times through this thing, right? Lord have mercy.
You see why I had to put my seatbelt on my chair?
Yes.
Can I just echo Sharon? you know, I think many of us are aware of the issues that PrideTT has been facing for the last 3 years. I don't need to list them out now, but you know, PrideTT has been facing a lot of issues, and I chose to be a part of PrideTT20 2.0 because the call was, if you want to be a part of it, then you need to be a part of it. You know, you can't just sit there and say, I'm not going to be a part of it. You need to be here and present and making your voice heard. And as difficult as it has been for me and for many other people, I made the decision that I wanted to be in the space. And I'm so glad for tonight. I just want to say thank you to all of you. I want to say, I'm gonna cry. I just want to say thank you, Sharon. You and I have had a long history and a long journey, but there's always been underlying all of it a pure commitment to our community. So thank you, Sharon Mottley, for all that you've done for us. Thank you. And I want to say thank you.
Get tear-eyed up in there.
And I just want to say thank you, Luke. What you said tonight was just incredible. What you said about me and about the work and about our community was just incredibly powerful. Thank you, Luke. You have risen in my estimation beyond anything that I could ever imagine. Thank you. Brandy, Brandy, what an amazing human being you are. And when I think of the work that you and I are doing in LGBT and HIV AIDS right now around COVID-19, we are making waves, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but around the world. People looking at the projects that we are developing and just in amazement of how our community is working so powerfully together. Siobhan Charles, I'm saying all this because I need to go to bed, darlings, I'm old. Siobhan Charles, I just want to thank you so much for reaching out to me and admitting that you were afraid to speak to me because you thought that I was too far beyond the reach of just you reaching out and speaking to me. And I just want all of you to realize that I'm not an icon. I'm not a ogre. I'm not anything. I'm just a human being like any of you. I have the same feelings and loves and desires and passions that you all have. And finally, Mr. Rudy Hanamji. Rudy, we've had a very long road. We've had a very long road. And I'm not going to let you off the hook, but I'm also going to applaud you for what you did in 2018 of taking up the mantle of creating the first public pride celebration in Trinidad and Tobago. You took it up and you made it ours, and you did the best that you could in hugely difficult circumstances. And I'm not absolving you of the difficulties, but what I will say is, thank you for all that you do for our community. And I said finally, Rudy, but no, my final thanks is to Faye. Faye, when we were in the basement of the Space Bar all those years ago, all those many, 28 years ago, to think that so many of our friends have passed away, whether through HIV/AIDS or murdered in the case of Raymond Chukong, I'm so grateful that I have you standing shoulder to shoulder with me. I just want to finally say, because I have to end tonight because it's very late here. And I just want to say thank you all so very, very much for embracing me with Pride 2.0 and for giving me this space to speak about who I am and what I do and what I bring to the table and how much I love my country. I am a born and bred Trinbagonian. I may be 6,000 miles away, but my heart, my navel string, everything buried in Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you all so much. And with that, I wish you all a very blessed good night. Thank you all so
Jason.
much.
Thank you,
Love you.
Jason.
Take care.
So let me just go around the panel for their final comments and thoughts.
Before you hit the final comments, I
Yes.
have a question that was given to me by one of Pride UE's reps who aren't, I don't know if they're here still or not, but if I just may ask this question, because I think the panelists, this might be very enlightening with the panelists that we have.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the question is, can you see any change to come with TLGB plus individuals in sport in Trinidad, especially with players assuming you have a relationship or like the same sex, that you will attack them in the changing rooms, and more so for our transgender individuals? What advocacy should be done for them to be allowed to play on the teams as their gender? So anybody want to have a crack at it? Anybody? Brandy?
Hello. So it's Wade.
Oh, hi, Wade.
Oh, hi, Wade.
How are you? With regard to that question, I can draw from international examples. Those questions were raised already, and there are some situations where in the latter part of the question with athletes wanting to compete with other athletes in the gender that they identify, there have been a number of legal issues that came up, very unfair legal issues, and many international bodies have not yet taken the right steps to recognize people for the gender that they're in. And some have gone so far as to say, well, you reassign your gender, but you still have the DNA of the gender that you were born in, and then that's unfair to other people, and it became very convoluted. Even the Olympic Association still has not made a decision on that. And that's just by the way to say that in Trinidad and Tobago, sporting associations may want to lean into those sorts of decisions. So it's going to be a very steep uphill climb, but nevertheless, don't give up.
Go ahead, Sharon.
Also, I would like, and we have to look at how we do this thing step by step, because we're talking about, we reach athletes, but where are we in terms of even getting LGBTQI in our curriculum? I think somebody mentioned that.
Yes,
in our classrooms, to begin to have a conversation around sexual orientation at all levels, because I'm looking at even in kindergartens, because as people begin to have same-gendered parents, the responsibility shouldn't only be on us as parents to educate our children or let our children know that we are okay, because we love each other, but also how do we push continue to push, because not that it hasn't been done and it hasn't been started, it has been started, you know, Silver Lining Foundation, etc. But how do we continue making inroads in all the places that we've begun to make inroads? I believe education is always critical on all levels, especially within our community as well, the education system, the healthcare system, and how do we treat transgender folks when they come into our come into clinics and the hospital. So again, how do we build on the work that has started, and how do we continue to push forward for changes? Because we need fundamental changes to then begin to build on those changes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sharon. So it's that time of the night where I will ask the panelists for their final comments and thoughts, bearing in mind what other lessons, as you as a, and Sharon does not want to hear this, but should I say a more experienced person share with the younger advocates coming up?
If you want to talk about experience, hello.
Listen. The first time somebody called me Tanti, I'm almost dead, as they say, okay? So, final comments and thoughts?
Was that me? Because I tend to call everybody Tanti, you know.
Oh, that fall in your lap. Okay, Micah, no, it wasn't you, but go ahead.
Okay, cool.
Eswick, anything you would like to add, comments, thoughts?
I would like to start by thanking each and every one of you guys here tonight. And not just for tonight, for all the work that we have done over the years. Because we didn't just get up and all of this just didn't just happen just like this. This have been years in the making. This started with people like Godfrey and Jeffrey Stanford and Roger Froger and so many other names. Yes? Yes, so many other names. And I just want to say thank you. I want to also say that one of the things, and we talked about it earlier on, one of the things we have to look forward to is the passing of the torch. Because yes, like I tell people I am here to stay, right? But of course, you know, we're not here to stay. We're only spending time. But still, we have to learn somewhere along the line to pass the torch. I think I've realized that, unknowingly I've realized that in Friendster. Okay? But we have to learn to pass the torch. Again, I say thanks for the work that has been done. We look forward to the young people who are going to come and continue the work that to continue from where we have left off. Yes. And that's it. Yes.
Thank you, Eswick. As always, thank you too for everything that you've done. Brandy?
Brandy?
I was going next, but okay, go.
No, take over. Yeah. Right. I must say, interesting, and I want to see the next 20 years just as interesting with these same kind of strong advocates and different personalities. People, you have to remember, everyone here fight is differently, but at the end of the day, it's about caring. I came here caring for my community, Eswick came here caring for his community, Sharon came here loving and caring for her community, you know, and that is going to always be. The younger people is going to have to know that somebody has to be able to, you know, pick up this, and in the next 20 years, I don't think I'll have a voice, although I will just be, what, 20, 39, 59, you know, really, I don't think that 59, I don't want to be doing it, but when I'm maturing or somebody else, you know, could do it. Because there's a lot of young people with potentials, but we just have to bring them in spaces where they could feel comfortable. You know, I like this because I know I just met someone recently and said, I am in love with what you just do. And I want to do this. I say, well, I want to take out a set of picture and be a newspaper and the press running you down. That's where like, no, but I want you to tell me how to say the things you to see, how to, you know, they want the compassion. They don't know where it is. They don't know, they feel they have to go in a school and study compassion. There's a lot of young people out there with it. And what we have to do is just be visible and let them come to us because they're willing, They're willing, but they're afraid because it takes a lot more than just this. And over the years, I've known when my first party I went to was in the attic, and Godfrey Seeley was alive, and Cyrus was by the band. I said, look at this tall man, look at this nice, hot, tall man. And I go on talking to Cyrus because I so frightened in that stupid party because Wayne go on and leave me. He bring me and he go on in the party and leave me. And I sit down talking to Cyrus. I remember Godfrey said, man, you know that is my husband. Well, I nearly, because you don't know what to say. And I just, we end up being friends. We talk for the night. She gave me a drink, but every minute, you know that I'm my husband. But I loved it. I loved it. And I didn't know about the Bohemia until the first memorial, the brunch with Hayden Brown and all of them, Betty Cushwood. They tell me she name is Betty Crocker. All she make is box cake, but it was nice. It was nice. It was an event. And you know, these are, look how we could, you know, I met Faye in Lambda. I've worked with Shahan, you know, on different projects, and I really love the fact that if I could do this next 20 years again, I will. But I want to be able to get the young people involved because this is what it is. We have to continue this fight. Because as I said, much has done, but a little has changed. So I don't know if we could have energy to wait again. But you know, I like what I do, and I'm looking to see the younger faces in certain spaces. That's exactly what it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. Sharon?
So, Brandy, in 20 years, you'll be 59. In 20 years, I will be 73 people. 73.
Sharon, you'll be 37. I don't know what you're telling people, you know.
And so what will happen is hopefully I'll have a nice little place and people will just come over and vibes and tell stories. And what I want to close with is people will tell you this work is difficult and it's trying and blah. Fuck that shit. This has been the wildest ride, the best experience of my life. I mean, Brandy, you think when you met Cyrus, I'm a big lesbian. I met Cyrus and I went, ew. And Cyrus went, He was like, not at all, eh? Hence our friendship was forged on some very clear boundaries. Like he was not liking me. And then, so it was the meeting of Cyrus, of Eswick, of Kerwin, of Luke, and this is just, you hear me only talking about man so far, Colin Robinson, Dave Williams. And I'm not talking about peaceful bonding kind of experiences. Some of it was really, I guess would be traumatic for other people, but I just relished all of this commitment, energy, passion. You know, nobody's more beautiful than Eswick, nobody. When Eswick enters a room as Lady Gaynor, it takes your fucking breath away. I mean, I don't know how heterosexual people live, okay? Nobody has what we have. Brandy, my sister.
I agree.
My God. And the Women's Caucus, we met. Our first meeting was in the office, my office on Cornelia Street. And it was a diverse group of women. And we sat on that floor and we dreamed. And we used to bring our potluck. Remember, Faye? We used to food. We all had different lovers at that time. We about 3 lovers over by now, right? At that time, I remember we all had little lovers. We about 3 lovers gone over by now. But what an experience. I would not have traded this journey for anything. And if I tell you, yes, the work is important, yeah. But what is more important is the people that you meet. Not only around the tables, but when you go into communities, when you hang out with sex workers, oh, hello. When you hang out with transgender women who tell you how they stab a man with their high heel shoes in the head, and you go, oh, yeah? I mean, those things are like things that
mind-blowing.
are mind-blowing, are stories that I can't wait to tell my grandchildren about their pussy-eating granny and all the people that Granny meet and loved over her time. So I tell you all, embrace the work and make sure at the core of it you have fun, you love yourself, and you love the people around you. Thank you for having me tonight.
You're most welcome.
Thank you for joining us. Luke?
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Sharon. If I may dial it back a bit, there's an experience that persons who, no, there's a way that people who experience oppression are expected to be the ones to get in there and dismantle oppression. And I think sometimes we have that backwards. And if we can appreciate that even in our own circles, that how the least among us brought into the conversation so that we appreciate that the burden is not on the least person to have the biggest voice to dismantle oppression. Now, taking that, now, be over and done with that. When in social work, we talk about groups and forming groups. And I don't know if people know of that whole notion of group formation, forming, storming, norming, and performing. And how each time new people come into the group, that we kind of go back to a previous stage and we have to figure it out. Unfortunately, just the way that the world works, it means that young people are going to be continuously coming into our movement. And so we continuously have to go back and try and figure out, if we start again, where are we? And so it is not surprising for me at all with all of these groups that we are at this stage of storming, this stage of disagreement, this stage almost of conflict, or maybe not almost, most certainly of conflict. And so I want us all to recognize that we are doing exactly what we are supposed to be doing. If we think about how the movement goes, if we think about people coming in every new generation, adding new things, adding new perspectives, it is always going to be the fact that conflict is inherent there. And it means that if we are in a moment of conflict now, that we are at the best moment, because the next stage after storming is norming. If we do this right, we get to the norms where we push the movement forward. And so let us embrace that. I don't want any of us to think that because somebody on the other side might have been a bit nasty, that something is wrong with them or something is wrong with us. Everything is right with us. And I will only close by saying my experience in the in the TGB, anybody after that? Q movement. Thank you, Brandy, and thank you, oh crap, PrideTT. What is your name?
Shahan. Shahan.
Shahan. Thank you so much, because that is what we need in the movement now. I'm so glad that Sharon has spoken, because I have found that lesbians, they have really been the ones who have been on the button. Lesbians have turned this movement more egalitarian than or any of our gay men could have done. And so I want to say I appreciate you all. And it has not been said enough. The trans women and the women are the people who really should be dictating the policy that we write, because they get it right. Thank you, and I relinquish my time to the moderator.
Thank you, Ruth. Rudy?
I really don't know what to say after all of these persons have shared, but I will say this. In all my years of driving, I've never made an accident, because one of the things that I always do before I put my foot on that pedal is to look in the rearview mirror, even if I'm going forward. I think looking 20 years back, when I was 15 years old, it was a lot of naivety and just sheer spunk, wanting to kick back at people who called me names and told me that I couldn't be anything in life. And yes, I had support mechanisms like my family and, you know, my background. But in my activism work, I met people who helped me become the person I am now 20 years later. Some of them on this very call, like Eswick and Wade and Brandy and so many others who I had the fortune of getting to know. And one must never take those things for granted, that whatever gifts you have been given, no matter how small you may think they are, you can use those gifts to create the future that you want. We can't predict the future, but you can create the future. You can make strides to create that future that you want. And when I look 20 years ahead, I certainly want to see a different Trinidad and Tobago and a different world. I want to see us leagues ahead. I want to see us move in exponential rates now. What has taken us 20, 30, 40, 50 years to do. When Hayden Brown, and I so hope he forgives me for sharing this, when he held on to me on that truck on the way back from the first parade and cried and sobbed because he lived long enough to see something take place that he thought he would never see in his life. If only for those coming up next, that is your vision, to change the world and make it a better place and to save one life. You may never know whose life that is. The people don't come and tell you that you saved their life all the time. But let that drive you. Let that drive you and know that we are telling you, as more experienced is the word we're going with, the phrase, more experienced people, that with time you realize that nothing is coincidental. We are all here for a purpose. We all came into each other's lives for a reason. And there is more unity than there is division. If you look carefully, there is more unity than division. And we want to simply continue to create whatever platforms and opportunities that we can create with what gifts have been given to us and what wisdom and experience we have. And we will gladly hand whatever we need to over, whether it's space, resources, knowledge, time. It is yours for the taking, the same way that it was given to me and I am creating. If I did not create something with what Eswick and Luke and they did before, and Danny and Cyrus, then I would be acting irresponsibly. All the work that they would have done, and Brandy's children coming up, they look to her, I see them. If they don't take up, Brandy, what you have created, they would be acting irresponsibly. Shahan and PrideTT20 and other young people, take this up and make the future that you want for the next 20 years. And I will hopefully still be around with these people. And don't forget us, invite us to the party, and we'll come on
Of
outside.
course, you all have to come to the parties too.
So thank you and happy Pride.
So before I hand over to Shahan to close the show, I want to recognize Siobhan Charles. He wanted to say something. Siobhan?
Hello, hi everybody. So this is just like a quick story to basically compile everything I've heard so far. I remember being 18 years old and coming to you for the first time and hearing about some meeting in Mount Hope, and I was like, what is this meeting with these gay people? I've never met, like at that point I've never met anybody gay before, anybody LGBT. Took a chance, went, I met Luke, this big brother who is living his life, being iconic. I'm just like, huh? You could do that here? And I just like, it really did start my activism. And in 2016, when Pride UE was founded, we wanted to be that bridge as well, where Friends for Life was my bridge. I wanted to be the bridge for younger people as well, because it's really is hard as a young person to get information out to us. Like, even though with all this information, it's still pretty hard if you don't know where you're looking, especially that how disjointed a lot of the activism is. Like, yes, we're connected, but from my perspective as a younger person, it looks like mommy and daddy always arguing, and you just here in the corner, like, watching, and you don't know what to do because it's just these two loud people talking, and you, the younger person, just they have to listen, and you feel like you have no hope. And I want to say, like, oh God, I'll see the text there.
They're all emotional on there,
Yeah, girl, I already cried enough for tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, but I just want to say, I appreciate that y'all are really listening to younger people and know that you have to collaborate with us because y'all not gonna be here forever. Knock on wood. 20 years, we're still here for 20 years. and I'm, but yeah, we really do need to work with the young people, because if you look at all the little pictures, you would see me in the background. I so little skinny, still skinny, but a little more, I get a little thick, but even more skinny boy in the corner. I want to see 10 Shavons, 10 Shahans, 10 Mias, 10 everybody in Pride UE. You know what I mean? I want to see more. I don't want to see one or two. And I do want to hear more young voices, because yes, I appreciate the older generation so much. Like, I just sitting in this talk, I cried so much. I want to have all these stories, all the experiences that you all have. I want to be here. How long?
20 years from now.
No, I'll nearly call Rudy age. I want to be as old as Rudy someday and be looking down at a little chiffon and be telling him, I was sucking somebody penis behind her. Anyway. In a joking way, just like, Sharon went to tell she grandchildren, about she pussy sucking, granny. And I just want to be that for somebody. And I really, really do want to build stories, memories in the younger community, and not just the sex stuff, but like authentic connections between us. And that's why I think Shahan is doing a really great job. I left Pride UE with a skeleton to build out of. I gave her the guide, and everyone is just doing a really wonderful job, and I like and appreciate what everyone on this panel have said so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Siobhan. Sharon, the box of stuff, old stuff that you have, the history, the ephemera of our lives over the years, all of you who are on this panel, think about those little tickets for parties that we used to have long time. When we went to a house party, you had to have a little invitation to get in because you wasn't getting in without it. That's our history. Those we need to start to collect, along with the stories to go with it, so that we'll be able to tell the young ones. And we need to create a space for us to have our own archive. That is what I would like to see. So Sharon, you mentioned your boxes earlier on. Don't just leave it to your children. We would like to have some of it too. And everybody else, we need, you have those free forums, Rudy. Those are things that we really and truly need to have.
Sure.
You know, much of our history is lost. We need to recapture them. Yeah?
Yes.
So, Shahan,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm handing over to you to close up.
Okay. So, I just want to say thank you to Siobhan for those amazing comments and words of encouragement, because for one, it has not been easy. I thought signing up for PRO, would have been an okay thing, be part of something bigger than myself. But I will say it has not been easy rallying the troops to attend these meetings, not just my executive troops, but my troops, the whole Pride UB community has not been easy, but I always give kudos to those who attend and give thanks to all those who attend. Um, the work that we are doing, I really, really, and I think I could speak for myself, Siobhan, Micah, Mia, who is my VP, everyone else on my team, everyone else at Pride UB who are willing, we would love to learn from you guys and, carry on where, where you guys left off and carry it on, like Brandy said, pick up the mantle and go with it. So I am putting myself out there. I'm putting Micah, Mia, and Siobhan out there as well. Right?
Epiphany.
And Epiphany, my bad. She will kill me, but okay. My bad. And Epiphany as well. To pick up the mantle. Let's go with it. And let's continue the work that everyone before Faye and Sharon and Rudy has done. And the work that Sharon, Rudy, Faye, Brandy, and those who are doing now have done. So I pose the challenge to you all and to the Pride UA community, and by wider region, the Pride community in Trinidad and Tobago. I pose that challenge to you guys. Let's see if we could really come together and pick up the mantle and run with it. With that being said, on behalf of myself, my co-host, Faye, my PrideTT team, and the Pride UV team, we'd like to thank all the amazing panelists for taking their time out of their busy, tiring, and hectic day. We know you all been working hard during the day. And Sharon looks like she wants to go and sleep because we keep on Sharon from
Listen, I have to be on the plantation in the morning, okay? But I went to get my pride flag. We can't end without no pride.
Yes,
A youth sleep. You're keeping her from a youth sleep.
yes, because we know there are time differences from where Sharon is and where Jason is.
No, I'm right here in DC. It's the same time, girlfriend.
My bad. And where Jason is the whole 6 hours ahead of us. So he will hopefully see this. But thank you so very much to everyone on the panel, and thank you to everyone who tuned in on our Facebook, PrideTT.com, who in our Zoom gave their input, send questions and well wishes. Just thank you for everyone. Do have a safe night. We have tomorrow night, it's our faith night. So head over to Pride TT's Facebook page. You'll find on the events, you'll find our next event, which is our faith night tomorrow night, same time, 8:20. Or head over to PrideTT.com and you'll get all the information and register to be part of faith night. It should be interesting. You can learn about your faith and that being part of the Pride community is not against your faith and what, the usual story people tell you. So thank you very much, and everyone have a good night, be safe, and happy Pride.
Happy
Happy
Pride.
Pride, everybody.
Happy Pride.
Love y'all.
Bye,
Thank you. Love you
Gosein.
back.
Bye.
I feel so loved.
You're overlapped. You're overlapped.
Thank you, Pearlia.
Oh my.
Bye, guys. Be safe.
I am so excited for Fate Night tomorrow. Oh my
Michael, go and sleep.
Catch your power.
All right.
Yeah,